Hey there, it's Lara here with Witchy Wednesday for the week of May 16th to 23rd, 2018. Welcome and thanks for being here. If you've never watched one of these videos before, this is a weekly video that I do all about the significant astrology for the week. And I take the week from Wednesday to Wednesday. And I talk about sort of the generalities in terms of how the bigger cycles and how things are impacting us on a collective level, and then also often draw attention to where this may be impacting you personally, depending on your own personal placements and chart. So it's helpful if you do have a copy of your birth chart, and there are places online you can actually create that for free, but you need your birth details. So your name, your place, your date of birth, and your time of birth for accuracy as well. You can still draw up a birth chart without a birth time, but having a birth time makes it more accurate, and it makes it, you will then know your rising sign, which is a fairly significant piece of the puzzle. And of course, if you ever get a reading with me, then I always provide you with a copy of your birth chart to keep, and I give you a little Astro 101 lesson right at the top of the reading to kind of put things in context for you so you know what you're looking at, and you can locate the different astrological houses and that kind of thing. And so then when you watch these videos, you have even more information, at your fingertips that can be helpful to you. So thank you to new subscribers, and also to the people that have been around since I started a while back. But really appreciate, that every week things are growing little by little, and I'm getting great feedback, and I really appreciate that. So talking about the week, yesterday was a fairly significant day in terms of the astrology, right? And I talked about this in last week's Witchy Wednesday in a little more detail, and I also did a whole separate video on Uranus moving into Taurus. So I'll put the link below to those two videos, especially the one on Uranus moving into Taurus, which gives you sort of a flavor of what Uranus is all about, and what this cycle can look like over the next 7 years. It's about a 7-year cycle. And I also in that video go through each of the signs and talk about how, what life area you will feel this energy the most. So if you want to know about that, then check out the video below. And again, I don't know if I said, but if you want to get a personal reading ever, then the link to my website is below, and you can do that there. So yesterday we had Uranus moving into Taurus, and also a new moon happening in Taurus. So, really marks the start of something new and different, right? Uranus is quite unique and quite eccentric, quite unpredictable as well. And so we might not even really have a sense of what exactly, the new cycle is going to, be for us. Or we may have sort of these inklings of change, or maybe we were hit right off the hop, right? Like right away, maybe we were hit with something. We did have Mercury conjuncting, or right beside Uranus, happening on Sunday, and it's still kind of in that what we call conjunction, although Mercury is moving on. But that is like a kind of this, it could be a radical shift in our thinking, an awakening, major realizations or aha moments. It can be surprising communications or messages, or communicating things in different ways than we may be used to, using our intellect and our thoughts differently, communicating maybe sort of in unusual ways compared to what we usually do, or our usual mode of communicating, or how we get our message across, kind of thing. So something surprising may have happened. You might have, it's possible you got a message, or an email, or that, just a really kind of shocking realization, or aha moment even, or a really, sudden idea about something. So that transit is waning now because Mercury's moving on. But I have my notes over here as always, right? So I've kind of got it broken down by date. And we had the moon right after that new moon in Taurus. The moon moved into Gemini late yesterday, and it stays there until the 17th, when it moves into Cancer, and Venus will join the moon in Cancer, and it will stay there for a bit, and then on Saturday, that's going to be happening, and then the moon's going to move into Leo, and then finally it will move into Virgo on the 21st. So, but I want to just kind of take a minute to talk to you about this new moon in Taurus, and talk to you sort of outside the scope of what I talked about in last week's video. So new moons are always a time of setting new intentions for like the cycle ahead, right? And for beginning new things. So just because the new moon was technically yesterday, where I am anyways, we're Eastern Standard Time here, you still feel those effects. You still have opportunity to harness those energies, right? And to work with them over the next few days, kind of thing. So it's not like, the new moon happened exact yesterday and now it's done, and so too bad for you if you didn't take a minute to reflect on that, or do a little intention setting, or whatever it is that you may choose to do. So I want to be clear about that, because this is a really powerful time, and I think, if you get the opportunity, it's really important to find a little time to work with this energy, and to really do some small, even ritual around setting your intentions for the upcoming cycle, not only of the moon, but then this is like a bigger cycle too, right? Because this happened in partnership with the shift of Uranus into Taurus. So we're talking like 7-year cycle here. Astrology is all about the cycles within cycles, kind of thing. So, I did a very small kind of, ritual yesterday, and I plan on doing another one today that will focus on, sort of the intentions I want to set moving forward for this next cycle. But the thing is Taurus, like when you do this ritual, whatever it is that you choose to do, I can give you a couple of ideas, or you may have your own, or you can Google new moon rituals and you'll find stuff, or look it up on YouTube. But you want to work with the energy of wherever the moon is, right? And so the new moon happened in Taurus, and Taurus is about what we value. And that is the material things that we value, things like money, our material resources, the earth and her resources, natural resources. It is about our own inner resources and our sense of self-worth and how we value ourselves as well. It's about our sense of security and stability, and how we go about getting those needs met for ourselves. It's also about our physical body, or how we experience the physical world, our 5 senses, that kind of thing. And so these are all the themes to kind of consider or work with when you're talking about, working with the energies of this new moon and this shift of Uranus into Taurus. And so those would be kind of things to consider, right? And so when you are doing like an intention setting ritual, which can be as simple as finding some quiet time where you're going to be, not interrupted by other people or technology or, what have you. And perhaps, lighting a candle. This can be as simple or as elaborate as you want. Because it's in Taurus, bringing some nature into it or doing it outside would also be something to consider. Or having, some good kind of, I don't know, maybe some good chocolate as part of the ritual, or some good food, a nice glass of wine, something like that, to make it feel like it's something special, a ritual, right? Um, Something to nurture yourself, even. And then write down what it is that you intend for yourself moving forward in this upcoming cycle, and think about those qualities of Taurus that I just mentioned, right? And if you want to get even more specific than that, then if you look at, if you know your own birth chart, or if you've had a reading with me, then you would have a copy of this. But if you've had a reading with somebody else, you might as well, or you can, create your own if if you have a little bit of astrological knowledge. But if you know where Taurus falls, what house Taurus falls in your chart, then you will have a good idea of where this will kind of play out for you, or what life area you are focusing on with these intentions. And you can consider your sun sign and your rising sign when you're talking about this. So there would be, the two houses kind of thing. So for me, this is happening, for example, in my, in my ninth house and in my third house. So ninth house of long distance travel, of foreign people, of, connecting with people long distance. So like over the internet, even, about seeking truth, about, developing your own sort of worldview or philosophy. Those are some things about higher education as well. Third house is all about communications, short distance travel, communicating and relationships with like siblings and people in your community. It's about how we communicate. So those are the two life areas for me personally that this kind of energy is impacting the most, right? So when I'm doing my intention setting ritual, this is where I'll focus. And so you can write those things down, and then you can, a great thing to do, because it's Taurus energy, and Taurus is an earth sign, would then be to go bury it outside somewhere. Or you can throw it in the fire or burn it up outside, or place it on, if you have some kind of an altar or place that you keep special things. That would be something to do as well. So that just gives you a small idea of what you can do, right? And it's like, it sounds a little woo-woo and magical, I know. And it is, because we are sending a message to our subconscious mind, which can be very powerful, right? To help us notice the opportunities and take them and take the right action and all of that, moving forward. So, okay, enough about that. I've gone on about that for a while now, but I just thought it was important and timely to talk to you a little bit about that. So, today, I talked to you about where the moon was going to be, and also today, what's happening is Mars is changing signs. So Mars is entering the sign of Aquarius, and it will be there until August 12th. And it will then retrograde back into Capricorn for a bit, but I'll talk about that when it happens. But so with Mars being in Aquarius until early August, this can be ebbs and flows in energy levels. So like erratic energy levels, like one day you're really gung ho and you've got lots of energy to do things, and then the next you're just tired and lethargic. And so that's the nature of the beast with Mars and Aquarius, right? So just honor that natural kind of rhythm and flow that happens. And this can also be Mars in Aquarius can also be a time when there's lots of sort of trial and error towards our goals and our ambitions, and even our creative projects, and our inspiration levels even may have ups and downs. May come in flashes, that kind of thing. Also, it's a good time to move forward. Like Mars in Aquarius is like action that's sort of emotionally detached. And you kind of, if we're talking sort of about the lower vibration of this aspect, then, you just want to be mindful of not being so emotionally detached that you are being, really insensitive kind of thing. So, another thing with this is it may be a lot of action and activity and ups and downs in terms of our how we are experiencing group situations or with our tribe, right? Aquarius is about the collective, and it could even be about doing something outside of the ordinary, in terms of physical activity, something that you might, just something that you wouldn't normally do, could potentially be a time for that as well. So as Mars enters Aquarius, it squares Uranus. So that's happening today, right? And so this can be like we're more inclined to take risks and to be a bit impulsive. So just, be mindful of that. Also, though, we can have this impulse to rebel a little bit against the rules, right? And that doesn't have to be a bad thing. And it can also be it can be funny. It can be difficult to focus. I just lost my focus there for a minute, but we can kind of have our energy sort of scattered a little bit with this aspect going on as well. And then on the 19th, Venus moves into Cancer, right? And so Venus has been in Gemini and it's moving into Cancer on the 19th. So this makes us, focus a little bit more on nurturing, on home and family and our roots. Those are all Cancerian qualities, right? And also we can tend to experience sort of more emotional ups and downs in terms of our particularly love relationships, with this going on with Venus in Cancer, just because Cancer is an emotional sign. If you think Cancer is ruled by the moon, right, and the moon affects the tides, and you think about that as sort of like our emotional rhythms, our emotional ups and downs, right? And Venus is the sign of relationships and love and beauty and other things, but largely that. So if we feel safe and secure, then that can be a lovely thing, where we can be really, wanting to look after people and nurture them and feel very, close to others and that kind of thing. But if we're feeling if we're feeling insecure, then we can tend to think of the qualities of a crab, right? Like want to run and hide, or perhaps, pinch, pinch back kind of thing. Or be a little overly defensive or cautious as well. So just a few things to consider. So that's Venus moving into Cancer. And again, how does this impact you personally? Well, it always depends on in this instance, where does Cancer, the sign of Cancer, what house does that fall in your chart? I'm going to show you the chart right now before I blather on anymore. Because if you don't know what I'm talking about, if it's sort of your first time here and you don't know what an astrological house is, I'd like to show you the chart. This is today's chart. So, each of these represents an astrological house, and each astrological house is all about a certain life area or certain themes, right? And so as the planets move through the zodiac, they move into different houses, and our own personal charts will have the houses or the different zodiac signs in different houses, right? And so wherever Cancer falls for you is that the house where this Venus and Cancer energy will be felt the most, right? So I just want to point a few things out. Like I will show you, for example, I'm always looking backwards, right? Because it's at the screen, but so there's Venus in Gemini, and Venus is going to move. It's sort of at the end of Gemini, it's going to move into Cancer. There's the moon in Gemini. The moon's going to move into Cancer as well, right? There's the sun still in Taurus. It's going to move later this week into Gemini. We've got Mercury there in Taurus and Uranus, right? Remember I said they were having this close conversation. They were conjunct or beside each other, and there they are. And there's Mars in Aquarius that I was talking to you about as well. So, that's the chart for today. But, again, just to give you an example, I always use my own chart because it's what I know off the top of my head, and it's my life experience, right? So I have Cancer in the 11th house, which is the house of groups and friendships and organizations, the house of your tribe kind of thing. Also the house of hopes and wishes kind of thing as well. And so this Cancer energy, your Venus in Cancer energy, will be experienced by me personally in sort of that life area, right? The 11th house. So that's Venus in Cancer. And then I just mentioned, as I was showing you the chart, that the sun is moving, right? So it's moving out of Taurus and moving into the air sign of Gemini. Gemini is ruled by the planet Mercury, planet of communications, of our thinking, of our intellect, of logic, of, Mercury is the messenger god, right? And so any way we send or receive messages or information exchange. And so, when the sun enters Gemini, and happy birthday Geminis, by the way, we tend to be, more social, more curious, maybe a lot of interesting conversations and messages, that kind of thing, exchanges of information. We can tend to also be a little bit more distracted, because Gemini is just so curious, always wanting to take in information. And so we can have a tendency to kind of go from, flit about from one thing to the other kind of thing. If you think of this time of the year in the Northern Hemisphere too, summer is kind of starting. The weather is getting nicer, and we are more social. We're more out and about and interacting with people, and have a little more spring in our step at this time of year, and a little more energy for for kind of those conversations. We connect with people more, that kind of thing. And so on the 21st, right? I mentioned to you the moon is moving into Virgo on the 21st, and this will mark what we call the first quarter square of the moon. So the moon, we're just experiencing this new moon right now, right? But then the moon moves about two and a half, to a new sign every two and a half days. So it moves quite quickly. So it will reach this point where it's at the first quarter square, right? And so a square is a conversation of tension. It's like something's got to give, right? We've hit a kind of a brick wall, or what some astrologers refer to as like it's a crisis point. Crisis doesn't have to be a bad thing, though, right? It's kind of like where we've got this choice to make, in terms of whatever, new kind of things sprung forth around the new moon. And so we may be faced with some kind of decision or obstacle or realization that we have to work through, and it can bring about great breakthroughs or changes for us. Or if we kind of resist that and we refuse to kind of take the action or make the decision, or shift the thinking, with the sun in Gemini, then, the universe sometimes sort of has a way of going, okay, I've said this before, if you're not going to take the initiative and exercise your free will, yourself, then sometimes, our hand is forced in some way, or we, the sort of tension of a square conversation needs to be released somehow. So, hopefully it doesn't result in kind of, like a verbal outburst towards, somebody that was just kind of a way of releasing the tension, but not really to your benefit in the end, right? So it's kind of like a choice point. And we always have free will. I say this all the time, and I will continue to say it, but we always have free will. We get to choose how we interact with life, how we respond to what life brings our way, right? And I think that I'm gonna leave it there, because I've sort of gone on quite at length here, and we can always go further and further down the rabbit hole when we're talking about astrology. There's always so much information. I yesterday had a conversation with somebody who is really very much a skeptic, right? And I'm all for a healthy dose of skepticism, but when we are so closed off to new ideas and new possibilities, we really do ourselves a disservice. And now I've said it, I think I said it in the Uranus and Taurus video, but this is not a time for closed off thinking. This is not a time to refuse to look outside your comfort zone. And it's a time for entertaining possibilities and perhaps considering things that you may not have considered before. It doesn't mean you have to believe, but when you don't even give something the chance, then you're depriving yourself really of perhaps having a new experience or learning something that could really change you for the better, right? So being open-minded at this time is really important and will serve you well in the long run. So I'm going to leave you with that. Thanks so much for being here. All the best to you, and I will see you again next Wednesday, okay? Take care. Bye-bye.